So, Makeda, you're planning to start your own independent research business? What's
Yeah, I'm looking into it.
Mhm.
It's interesting. I'm looking forward to today's class.
Oh, yes, for sure. I'm also, because I know you and Glenn, both of you would be looking for some opportunities in this area. So that would make it really worthwhile. And besides, it's a change from what we've been doing, for the last, 7, 8 classes. So it just breaks that continuity of, or just breaking out of that typical thing we were doing. So this will be little different. And I'm also revisiting this slide after a while. So I'm trying to educate myself a little, or at least get the sense of, uh, what was in there before so that I can explain it. All right. I'm writing a very interesting article past few days, and I think it's going to be published. What maybe coming week Monday sometime. I'll let you know. It's worthwhile for you to read it. It's talking about the topic is essential elements of learning online search and research as internet becomes pervasive in new digital information environment. It's a long title, but it is giving an outline of what are the essentials, what is required for you to get into the online research business, some of the things that you have to learn. See, search queries, how to build them
You
is
said
not.
you're gonna email this to us, or
I'll send you. In fact, we'll be in the class, and at that time, I think I'll let you know where it's at. I
okay.
can even send you the link if it gets published. If not, then I'll just attach it somewhere in the email. But it's going to be coming next week. So I was just going through this as well past few days just to finish it. It's easy to start something, very difficult to finish on time. When you've got like 10 different things happening, it's
I
just
was just about to say you have a lot of things going on.
I am just making those mistakes all my life, overcommitted and then stressed out. That's been my life, and I think I'm pretty much used to it. Occasionally, it just bothers me because you see, when you not able to tie the loose ends, you were not able to deliver the perfect product or something, that would be totally satisfactory. So that's the dilemma. Okay, Glenn is here. So let's just welcome Glenn in the class. Hi, Glenn.
Hi,
Welcome.
Glenn.
Hi, everyone.
Hello. How are you doing, Glenn? Everything's okay? Everything's good?
Oh, things are good. I'm
Okay.
sorry I joined a little bit later. I thought you might not be on yet. So,
No, no, that's good. You actually came little early. I came early also. So, um, yeah, it's going to be a better class in the sense that it's just going to be, somewhat a different topic. And as I was telling Makita, might be very useful for you because you're also looking into this business in a way as an independent consultant or something like that, eh? So,
yeah, that's sort of the direction I was going to start off in. I've been looking at places like Upwork and others, and I've already registered with them for other reasons, and I might try to do something on there just to get started.
good thing is that we've got some assignments that are coming through some portals, not necessarily Upworks, but there are some consulting assignments we keep getting. So we can share that with you to give you an idea of certain opportunities that are there. And then, of course, there is always some, you know, some sort of areas of expertise in doing your research work. So niche research is sometimes very important area that you have to be very careful. You have to carefully select. So all that we will discuss. So business of research. Let's see. What is an independent consulting business? That's just a definition. Independent research specialist as consultants. It's again a sort of a definition, but the reason why people hire independent consultants, a major reason, if you are dealing with corporate and you are already coming from an industry where you're known and you are trying to work with a, a large company, they're required to hire consultants mainly because they want an outsider's opinion. That's number one. Number two is that it is a requirement by shareholders to verify and to validate certain information. The third reason is it becomes really very expensive to hire somebody on permanent basis to find um, pieces of information like data, to consolidate that, to be able to organize all that. So it's more of an outsourced advantage to the companies when they know that there is someone that knows the industry or they have certain level of trust in their ability, not just the trust for other reason, but their ability or their professional background that they have. So independent consultant comes in on regular basis. Once they hire you, you can pretty much be sure if your work is good, they will keep hiring you for contracts, ranging from for different periods of time. But it is very good, or you could say that it can work out really well if you are really focused on the corporate side. Let's look at. I don't want to deal with the definitions. I leave it to you to read and remember. And this is for exam reasons because they might just give you a question that says, what are the advantages or what is advantages to those who are looking to hire third party consultants or outside consultants. So based on that you can look at the definitions and sort of answer it in multiple choice that you get. Here is the slide I want to start with. Okay, so preparedness. Before you start, some of the elements, some of the components that you have to identify and use check mark to see if all of these are placed together, so that you have that comfort level where you can actually start your projects or start your work. uh, First question, am I ready to offer online research work? So what is it that you need to present? First is your subject expertise. There are when you go into the market looking for research work, you will find there are just two major areas. If you are an independent individual, not a big large firm of research consultants, but let's say it's your own business, a small business, and you want to identify yourself, or say you want to label yourself as an expert in certain areas, or you're a generalist. So what is a generalist? Expertise, we all know, like what could be your professional background, depending on where you're coming from with your academic credentials and your certifications and so on. But when you talk about a generalist, basically you have to look at certain areas which are pretty much uh, a need or a requirement for all sorts of businesses, such as data collection, leads collection, what is it, like data scraping, data organization, um, uh, I mean, there are so many of them, but those are the ones that you can safely get the contracts for without having a very specialized knowledge in a subject matter. So the subject matter or the profession could be, let's say, coming from a legal background, so that you have that specific knowledge about that industry, or if it is financial analysis, then you're coming from financial background. So apart from that, a generalist would be able to collect information off the web that could be of any sort or any type. Your expertise lies in how your ability to find that information quickly, and that information has to be precise. That means no extra data gets collected, so it is filtered out well, and then your ability to organize it and then present it to the client. So all of that is something that a generalist has to know. So you have to find that slot for you that could be your comfort level, could be your expertise, your knowledge of the subject. Then where to search for information, you have to have a very organized way of collecting certain links for certain portals or certain websites or certain areas of information that that you don't want to go back and start finding it fresh. So if you have found something, you've come across some sites that has a collection of pieces of information that you feel is important or could be useful, you just put them in a bookmark or organize them in a software. There are a lot of specialized software. We use Zoho. I don't know if you've heard of that, but I guess there are so many out there which allows you to organize your links or the databases that you can readily go to by structuring it in such a fashion that it is properly categorized, and therefore it's easy for you to find information. You have to be prepared. Then how to search for relevant and reliable information. This is going to be the major issue, because most of the clients, they feel very uncomfortable handing over this kind of research, especially research work, to third party, for two reasons. One is that they want to make sure that they are not getting some plagiarized information, or the data that is being collected is not coming from another client, or it is something that is not reliable enough, or the source of that data is not reliable. Then the client would have to be convinced, and they would have to put a lot of reliance on your ability to collect authentic and genuine first-hand pieces of information and data, so that reliability factor can be reinforced by a researcher by giving out the details of where you're getting that information from. So there has to be a complete disclosure. Second thing is, while the client is asking you to collect the data, he's also sharing some of the information that's been there or is already collected through their internal resources. So that pieces of information are also shared in a lot of situations, and they're reluctant to share it with outside researchers unless they have some sort of trust. Then you have to prove to the client that in case if the assignment entails some sort of investigative work or investigative research, then what type of tools you're using to verify or to identify or filter out fakes and real information, like how far you are trained to, let's say, you know to verify if the news that is coming through the social media, or any video clip that is being played can be verified? Would you be able to do some sort of forensic analysis? Would you have the ability to use some online tools to verify those informations? And then there are other methods and procedures that can work really nicely if you are able to present it to your client, saying that you have the ability to find out if the accounts are genuine, if the website is genuine, if the information that was there before can be tracked or retraced, or anything depending on the type of assignment. So your ability to do investigative research is another area which can blend with everything else that you're doing, so that you can offer, because you never know what type of what is the need of clients, or what type of assignments you're getting, so you don't want to lose out on those opportunities. And then you've got how to collect, tabulate, organize, analyze, and present information. So collection of information is really, sometimes it's an easier part. What might turn out to be difficult is your ability to organize that information so that it can be interpreted, or it can be worked on to make some decisions, or it is able to um, assist the client in making some actionable decisions, right? So that kind of organization, where you can use charts, you can use graphs, you can use Excel sheets and so on. So how do you present that? And there is a science behind it, and there is a learning required to be able to do it in a fashion that is industry recognized. In data analysis, data analytics, any sort of analysis requires for you to have the ability to, like it says, to organize, tabulate, and present information. Then how to write research reports, very important, because report writing is another function, a major function, part of the communication expertise that you have. For you to work with the clients, you would require a lot of, not only just the skills to write research reports, but also to be able to exchange documents. There are several documents that sort of goes back and forth between you and the client, like MOUs, or you could say request for quotes, or quotes that you send out, the approach that when you're giving your proposal in response to the request for proposal to the client, you should know how to um, build that document and do it effectively and do it in a professional way. Then there are other writing skills which are absolutely essential, also, and we will discuss those documents. They would We'll run through those type of documents, including a contract, so legal contract that you have to come up with, because not all legal contracts are the same, and especially in research area, all contracts are customized. They're customized based on the client requirements and your approach to how you are going to tackle it, depending on the type of clients, the type of deal they are interested in making. So your legal, and you can't hire the attorney or lawyers all the time to to work on those contracts. You have to do it yourself, and that is another ability that you should have. Ability to conduct online investigative research work. Okay, so we discussed it before. Familiarization of important cyber laws. Important cyber laws, what are those? And for researchers, not all cyber laws, because cyber laws or internet laws is a huge, vast area. There is a question of jurisdiction depending on where your client is and how you are going to enforce a certain contracts between yourself and the client, depending. Then there are other issues like the type of research, which include certain damages, certain do's and don'ts that you have to do, what would be the repercussions, what would be the termination issues, because everything that you are doing online or with reference to the information that gets collected is directly or indirectly related to the laws which are strict when it comes to intellectual properties, plagiarism, copyrights, issues that are there. And then, of course, if it is research is of investigative nature, then you have to know the type of laws that apply for the kind of offenses or the kind of situations that would ask you to identify whether it is criminal activity or if it is a civil sort of situation where the frauds are concerned. There could be frauds that are easy to detect, others are more sophisticated, and so on. So all that sort of knowledge is important. And then ethics is another area where one has to be very much careful about the privacy issues, some of the ways the surveys are done, the questionnaires are prepared to collect information online. So anything virtually collected that involves a subject being a human subject, of course, requires certain sort set of ethical rules and things that you probably want to make sure that you don't you know break those ethical. I mean, those are not ethics, is one area where you could say that it is not enforced with the in the same way as the other internet laws, but it is a moral obligations to a certain extent as well. So it is a matter of reputation, but those gray areas always exist in ethical issues. Sound knowledge of conventional research methods is absolutely the major part of doing your research work, because with the way the internet has come up so quickly and with so much information and so much opportunities, the problem is that information is everywhere, but there are certain, I mean, even before the internet, the research work is going on, was going on from long before. So there has been a certain um, conventions and certain methods and methodologies that has been created, and those methods are well known in the industry and they're considered standards. And for the sake of uniformity and for the sake of getting credibility, not only as a researcher but as someone who understands methods of collecting samples from the population, or how you would create analysis like statistical analysis and all that, that have been there for a very long time. Except that when we are talking about online research, people only think of it as if you are there to collect information and sort of to find facts and information alone. But that's not the job of a researcher. Researcher has to go much beyond that, and therefore they have to understand what are the conventional research methods. And then, of course, knowledge of specialized online research tools. There are so many tools out there. Remember when we were doing in URL, looking for information in the links and so on, we came across something that says inward links, or links that are pointing to your website, or something that is out there but it is not coming from your website directly, but it's been mentioned by third party. So there are tools to for you to go and look for all those links that are outside of your website, and those softwares have the ability to collect that information and bring it to you in a more organized way and then list it for you. So those are some of the tools, and there could be so many others. There are specialized search engines that do certain type of functions which are specifically made to work on certain type of information that is on the internet. So those specialized tools, those utilities, you should have a listing of that. You should have a collection of it or subscription to at least the essential softwares and tools. And I think we have a list of that which we sent to you. It is a reference book that has these tools listed. So you should have something like that. Those directories would be a big help. And then how to perform precision search as query operators and things that we are already learning. So all these are going to ensure that you are getting ready now to offer your services, because you're familiar with any of all of these elements, and you have actually defined the objective of your business, and you have packaged your services by uh, looking at how the market is set in this area. You can label yourself as a generalist or a knowledge expert and so on. So this is what this slide was about. um, Anyone who is looking to hire you will have to go through these considerations that are set here. And we're going to go from left all the way, and then I guess from right to left, from left to right. So start with this one. They're going to ask what your experience is in the industry and subject knowledge. Of course, logical question. Anyone would ask that. What are your previous work references? That's going to be another question. Thing is that there are certain opinions, and there is no fix, I guess, set of rules that would either define what the client is looking for sure, in how your experience is or how much your experience is or your work reference. It just depends on your relationship with the client and your ability to convince the client, and also depending on how much of a technical background you have. Is so many elements, so this is not a definitive thing, but more of a general question. But to say that if you don't have previous experience you won't get the work, I don't agree to that. Industry knowledge is obviously important if you are presenting yourself as an expert in some sort of profession. So but the work references is one thing that the client would look at, because they don't want to be the first ones to hire you, because you're not getting in their organization as an internee. They are going to pay you for your services, so they want to know if you have some work references. It's always a good idea to volunteer your services initially, and to do some research or to write some articles, so that they know that you have the industry knowledge, and also in a way to see what your dedication is like for the industry or for the research work that you want to do. So you want to be more active on the social media side and write few things, comment on things, give your opinion, so others can notice you. So they might hire you. Can we trust giving business information? Of course, that's obviously the concern when they're talking about work references. I guess they're interconnected. So if they want to trust you with the information that they're going to hand over. Another reason why the matter of trust is important here is that depends on the legal structure of your business. If you are an individual without having any business identity, or you've not been around for some time, they're not sure if you'll continue in the same profession, or for any reason if something happens to you, who's going to take over rest of the contract and so on. So they want to look at how your business is structured. If it is more of a firm where you have few partners, also experts, or some, or those are the people who are research specialists, they might just consider it to be something that is more reassuring, just for the sake of continuity of the business and your reputation and so on. Can we count on information and data reliability gathered? As I mentioned to you before, you have to really make sure that the client, there has to be real an openness, and you have to be very transparent in disclosing certain things, one of which, the most important one, is what is going to be your source of data, how or what method you would apply to collect that pieces of information. The just collection from an authentic source sometimes is not enough, because there could be occasions where the shareholders are interested in validating that information as well. So there could be a risk on your end as well, while you are committing certain things that you have confirmed, validated, and they don't come across, or they're flawed, or they're not the type of data that they can rely on, then you could be sued as well. So it is best to be transparent, agree on methods of collecting data, agree on sources of data that you're collecting, and so on and so forth. So that's an important factor. What is the business background, size, expertise, client base? If you have other clients or some reference you can give, good. Size matters, as I said, everything is interconnected. So depending on the corporate structure of your business, there would be this element of reassurance, where they would actually know whether or not there would be somebody else in case you're not able to fulfill your obligation. Somebody else in the business might be able to continue with it or take care of it. What are the business memberships with trade organization, professional bodies? Because there is no, I don't know of any licensing requirements in doing research, but like AOFIRS in our organization, if you are a member of our organization, the your clients would be able to verify, first of all, your credentials, would also be assured that being a member, you are going to follow certain code of conduct, or there could be other ethical issues that you would be required as a member to comply with. And so those organizations, or organization like AOFIRS, would give it slightly more of it gives it a more credibility, and this is why being part of a trade organization, professional bodies, is important. Who are business partners, collaborators? If you are working by yourself, it is not a bad idea to create affiliations, or to have some sort of I don't know if there is any franchise element, but certain logos, certain partners, certain specialized software partners, even forensic specialization partners would help a lot. And it doesn't take much to get to become partners with them, because the others are also looking to have people use their logo or use their product. So it's always a good idea to spread that footprint of how many of the affiliations you have or partnering you have. But at the same time, there are situations where research work suddenly gets expanded, or all of a sudden, depending on the season of the year, certain researches grow exponentially, and all of a sudden you need more helping hands, you need those experts as well. So you should have in your database those contacts and at least those people that could be available on demand if there is a need. So, you have commitments which your company or your business has made to the client, and the client wouldn't care if there was some shortage of expertise. All they want is for you to deliver things on time. So, you need to have those collaborations. Digital footprint, of course, means that you should be present in social media. Some reviews should be there. If at all someone that you've worked with previously is kind enough to leave reviews, places like LinkedIn would help. How do business websites appear in look and feel? Of course, that is again dependent on whether or not you want to give it a corporate look, or you just sort of do it on your own and don't use experts. Designing a website is very easy these days. I mean, you can just, it's more like a do it yourself. So if you can just create a website that at least has the kind of colors or logos or some branding on there. If you don't have a branding, you just have your name, maybe that is not the best idea. So when you have a website, you want to make it such that it has those attributes or those components that are good for doing your branding or promoting your brand. To start with, there should be a logo, there should be a caption, there should be some statement under that talks about your ethics or your some sort of a value proposition, a short value proposition you can put in a single line, few words but very effective. Are there any third party opinions, poll, reputation, ratings? Of course. Are there any court cases? Risk mitigation or um, risk assessment in giving contracts to outsiders is another area for the corporate clients that they want to dig in deep and do some background checks on you. So if you have any pending court cases or something that's going on that is part of the public, you could say the public database, and such as court cases, the client would have people who would look into that as well. So they know when it comes to risk mitigation, what is it that they have to check on you. So there could be some background checks. So this is what the client would be looking for. Okay, establish research niche area. So how do I get online research work? Okay. Niche area, of course, you have to be. Now, with the type of work that you can expect to get, let's suppose if it is work of a generalist, and you are on the Upwork website or similar website, the expectation of the client is that you would well, they don't want to pay a lot of money to begin with, because here you are competing with, because if you are a generalist, means that those information that involves lead collection, for example, it can be outsourced to someone in a third world country like India or Bangladesh or those, and then you start to compete with the pay scale or the contract price, which is obviously is pennies and dimes compared to what we are used to in North America. So that is a very big competition. So that's where the trouble is. But then there are other contracts that require for you to be in North America, or for some reason it requires better communication or writing skills. So you have to look for those areas that I would call niche areas for a generalist. That is, if you have to compete in that sort of market, and for you to get better price, You have to be very selective and to see what type of contracts specifically mention that you have to be in North America, you have to be English speaking, you have to be, all those have to be there. And so, you get better contracts. We'll talk about other opportunities beyond just the Upwork. It just came to my mind and I thought I'd just mention it. Anyway, layout, online presence, you have to have a website, that is for sure. If you don't have a website, it is these days it is very difficult for someone to trust you with with things. Even in up places like Upwork, if you don't have a website, it can become a negative element. It is not something, and it's easy to do. I don't think it'll be very difficult if we just make a static website or standard website. These days it costs like around 50 to 100 bucks. That's about as much as I know of, that the cheapest that you can get your website done. Um, Somewhat satisfactory in a it doesn't look bad. It's quite good unless you are planning to add few dynamic codes like registrations and emails and things. Probably the max that I am looking at is not more than $500 at the tops. Build comprehensive business plan, of course. Business plan in your case where you're starting on your own will, besides the marketing plan, which is where you would feel that you have to spend a lot of bucks. The other part is the financial plan, which is as important as the marketing plan, because you have to sustain for some time before you start getting contracts. So the time frame for doing marketing, doing sales, getting the contract, and everything else, the cycle of it, the whole sales cycle takes some time, especially in a new business. So, you have to really anticipate paying things out of your own pocket. Like there could be fixed expenses and there are variable expenses. So, fixed expenses are indispensable. You have to, cough out the money to pay for those. So, you have to make your financial plan just so that the business plan is comprehensive enough, and then you have targets and milestones to cover. Obtain certifications, of course, register with everything else over here is not as important. But when we start to look at what the opportunities are in the real sense, when we go to some next few slides, you will see what are the typical opportunities, both coming from inside the corporations or inside the businesses looking to hire outside consultants, and the opportunities that are coming from virtual assistants or virtual opportunities online. So we'll look at both of them um, in next few slides. Never mind this one. This is not as important. Soft skills, technical skills. This is all descriptive. What are, this is only for the exam. So if there is a question that says, let's say out of the soft skills that is mentioned right here in these bullet points, I've got 1 2 3 4 6 of these. It might come as a question that, let's suppose, picking any one of this: ability to solve complex analytical and problem solving skills. It would ask if is it a soft skill or a technical skill. So you would, just tick on the soft skills. So this is why you have to just go through this. But technical skills, of course, data analysis, analytics, computer skills, online research skills, you can read through it. It's should be part of the slides. So I don't have to discuss any of these. It's all theoretical. Let me check what this is. This is jumping away. I have to find where to find it on the. Okay, so from the corporation point of view, where the businesses would require certain help from outside consultants, like we do a lot of work for corporate, and we assist in some in for assist in market research, and we assist in collecting information and verifying some information for risk assessment reasons of corporations, and some of the reports we do for the shareholders when they request it from us as independent, for us to give independent opinions. So we do that kind of research, and this is why we are going to share some of the type of data that we are asked to collect. And you can also look at what would this be in terms of opportunities that you might get if you have to work with businesses. So let's just do this part shortly. I'm going to return in 5 minutes, and I'll explain to you some of the reports that are generated for the corporate, and for them to collect certain pieces of information or gather data so that these reports can be completed. Some of that data can be relates to the internal functioning of the organization, collected from different departments, while other data which is required by internal departments, but it also needs comparative analysis and business intelligence that can be outsourced to people like us, and so we do the collection of that information for them on regular basis, and then push that information back to them, and they incorporate that in their different reports. So this cycle of collecting information, or the type of information that we collect, is an outsourced function, and could be another opportunity that would open up if you feel that you have the ability to get into this area. Market research in for us is the major part of the type of research we do. So this is what we are going to discuss more, as we have more hands-on experience on it. And as I return and warm up my coffee, we'll join back again. So see you in 5 minutes. And if you have any questions, you can ask me anytime. Hi, Glenn, Makeda, I'm back.
Hi.
Hi. Let's look at some of the research reports. Mostly, these are the type of reports that you have to be familiar with for you to understand what could be the need out there, and what type of information is collected uh, to design these reports. So, for us to get some sort of knowledge, I guess you don't have to have in-depth knowledge, but to know what type of data is involved and what are these reports called. So that if you need to know more about them, you would at least know the name of these reports that you can search for. On the internet, you can get a lot of samples and examples. But if you use the exact same wordings, for instance, market
And cat
research
balls noodles.
reports, industry reports, social media presence, like there could be, like, there is a client of ours that wanted us to do research on social media to see what their digital footprint is like in the social domain, and to see what type of audience they are gathering. Are they up to date with the trends? Are they blending their products with the trends? or other sort of feedbacks, or the social murmur as they call it. So to collect that is an important piece of information these days, and there's a lot of opportunities in this area. Then we've got a consumer preferences report, where we are asked to do some surveys, do some polls online. There are a bunch of social experiments that you get to see. Mostly we don't look at it from researchers' perspective, but more as an audience. But if you look closely, you can find some of the behaviors, if it is to do with, some specific type of behavior in certain part of the world, or certain behavioral issues which are to do with what you see in the clips that are shown, or you can conduct your own experiments. Then there are studies as well that you can do. Studies is a very broad term, and when it comes to consumer preference studies, it is usually a very long term contract and involves, some sort of legwork is involved in this. Then virtual groups, you can create samples from the population that you select. So consumer preferences is a long-term or more tedious kind of research work. SWOT analysis is very typical in, I guess you could say that in the any type of industry, SWOT analysis is the basic, and what it means is that SWOT is basically the initials, or the first letter of the words. Like S stands for strength, W is for weakness. Strength is what strength your organization has, what type of products you have. You do product analysis and to see what your competitors are doing. Then you have to look at some of the weaknesses compared to others. It's all relative. Then based on your strengths and weaknesses, can you define opportunities, which is O. And then T is the threats, or some of the ways in which you want to identify, based on what the future projections are, or where the industry is heading. You can look at some of the risks and threats out there. So those type of analysis can be done, but mostly it is done internally by the organizations, and the marketing department is responsible for it. Financial accounts and audit reports is mostly internal, but the shareholders sometimes require in financial accounts. There could be certain elements like contingencies or provisions they create, and the shareholders wants to know that based on the figures or the numbers that are projected as provisions that are either expensed, or opportunities that are added to the income, are those legit, are those authentic enough, or what were the basis of formulating those figures. That kind of information can be asked by the shareholders, not from the corporate internally. When I say corporate, I mean departmental heads, some of the VPs that feel that um, they are the ones who basically are running or making the decisions for that department or that organization. Then there's an element of budgets and cost analysis. So cost analysis, it's so mostly internal. It is not something that you would be asked to find information for. The product analysis is the key element these days, especially people who are starting to do a lot of e-commerce using another strategy, which is very cost effective, where they are doing, or they're asking the vendors to do drop shipment for them. It's called blind drop shipment, where the the manufacturer or anyone who is doing the drop shipment for you does not reveal your or their identity, but puts your label on it. Yet the sale is made by you as someone who's running the e-commerce, or responsible for delivering the product. But the product analysis is important for them in the sense that they want all the time to be looking for new products, something that is trending, something that is new, more of a differentiator, something that is giving a higher rate of return or bringing better profits based on the cost and so on. So that product analysis is also a vital part that is outsourced, and on Upwork you would see a lot of this coming as opportunity for Glenn to know, especially that people are looking, searching for products, and they're asking you to do product analysis. Product analysis is a very broad term. Product analysis can be for your own product, or it could be an analysis that is really basically to do with the feature set of a product, or the price part, or the what they call BOM, or what is it called, bill of material, if it is cost effective or not to manufacture. So product analysis can be of different sorts depending on the nature of the consulting assignment they want to give you. Market share is another study that is more elaborate and requires a lot of infrastructure on your part to be able to handle collection of data from the market, and verifying that data and so on. Then you've got comparative analysis, somewhat similar to SWOT analysis. Government policy reviews, feasibility reports. Feasibility reports is very common when you are looking or asking the bank, financial institution for loaning, for giving you loans to start a business. That requires feasibility report. So for someone to build that requires a level of expertise that they may not have. They will ask you to create a feasibility reports for them. Banks and funding resources report requirements. Okay, so we're not interested in this. This is not our area. We won't get anything from banks and funding resources. Shareholder reports. Shareholder reports means that shareholders are asking you as an outsider to build certain reports to verify certain information. So it could be any kind of report. Shareholder reports generally is a combination of financial analysis, the share values, the what you call the business valuation, and so on. Business plans is another area where a company or a corporate may ask you to assist in, but you don't actually end up making their entire business plan, but just bring some components to help them build this for their own internal requirements. However, there are outsiders who, similar to having requirements of feasibility reports, may have a requirement to build business plans as well. So business plan is in itself is an expert area. If you know the industry, or if you have enough background or professional experience in certain industry, business plans offering is a good package that you can offer for as part of your research. Business valuations, assets valuations, and so on. So these are some of the common names that we can use to find more information on the type of reports I just mentioned on this slide. Examples of jobs that okay, so this information or this slide talks about some of the jobs or job descriptions, or the I guess the scope of work that is involved in certain type of jobs, and that in turn is important for researchers to identify with who the contact person is, or who to address the opportunities to. So you can basically create a package or a presentation or something to to give to these type of people who would be building the reports I just mentioned to you, especially internal management reports. They may require your help. So senior business executives, product managers in particular would be interested in hiring outside help. Finance and accounts related jobs, marketing and sales. So this is just a list of type of jobs, but analyst jobs means that these are the kind of people, or these are the type of analyst which actually play with the data. They collect raw data, organize data, analyze data, use different sorts of softwares to create graphs and create charts, and basically that's the reason why they're called analyst, is because they're going to prepare something that would help them, the senior management, to make a decision. Or they would all the time be collecting information that would prevent the organization for finding the right direction, not making certain mistakes, or avoiding certain situations by knowing beforehand what could be the outcome of certain decision or certain things. So analysis is that kind of job. If it's a big organization with business analyst, cost analyst, financial analyst, and so on, these are listed here. Those are the people that are collecting information, and they might require certain type of assistance as well. SWOT analysis is strength, weaknesses. It's just a chart that you can refer to. And let's look at the management reports. When we talk about management reports, we are talking about internal data or internal reports. Then there are external data or external reports also. So the business management reports involve both sorts of data that could be internal, that is generated from the corporate or from inside of organization, and there could be a need of external data for comparison reasons, or for the reason of finding variance from the standard, or from what the figures are showing internally. You may want an external data as a comparison, or when you're collecting a competitive intelligence from your competitors. So a business management report, two types. However, in this one, I have explained with this chart, with the heading specifically, that assuming that these are the departments, let's say marketing and sales, with this heading, and what type of reports the marketing and sales would require, and what do they generate internally, as well as some of the reports that would require outside help or outside data. So just have to note down, or just have to use these names as the type of reports, and then find out what type of information can be termed as something collected from outside, and that piece of information can be part of your package that you can offer as something that you can collect for your client and offer as your services. So some of the reports that are mentioned here, this list may not be totally complete, but pretty much like 90%, I would say, or at least 80% of it is standard. So campaign effectiveness report, comparative analysis, brand research. This has become more granular compared to this previous list that we discussed. This was more like general or in the broader perspective, whereas this listing of report is more granular and it is more detailed. So in under the marketing and sales, all these reports, all these names, see, some of them might be of interest to you, like keywords research. You could do it as an offering. You could do as a user usability testing, you can do, or you can create a group that would be a virtual group for which you would conduct the tests and collect the information and then give it to your corporate client. Brand research you can do, to see the type of information you collect from social media, from opinions, everything else that is out there. There are a lot of softwares that also collect that information for you, especially if it is a product that can be identified as a consumer product, for which there is plenty of information out there. There could be product development research, product price comparison and testing. So I don't want to go through each one of them, but this list is something that would help you in creating certain type of research packages or type of offerings that you can combine and use these wordings to bring to the attention of those people in the corporate for which job description is specifically mentions that they would be producing these reports for the management. So that could be part of their scope of work, and therefore you would know where to send those offering, who to send it to. And these are the wordings you would use: company research reports, technical reports, financial. So not all of these would require external data, so you have to be selective. Now these reports are almost like as if we are not considering just the internal piece of information. There are elements or there are certain parts of these data or information or numbers that are generated externally. So you have to be able to know that. And the only way you can find that out is if you look at these reports and go and see inside of it, like what type of information it has. And that way you can connect the dots with putting those proposals together and saying that this piece of information you can collect for the client. Is this making sense so far? Anything that I'm not able to explain proper for now with these, especially with this chart? Glenn, you there?
Yep, sorry. Yeah, I think I understand the concept there about internal and external data, like what you're going to find by researching it and what's perhaps only available within the company.
So you think that if you had to start research work on your own, would this piece of information help you in building your proposals or your service offering packages?
I think I need to do some more research on what each of those would probably entail. I suspect I could find some samples on the internet of what other companies have, what's been used in the past, and get some idea what elements need to go into each one of these and see what I'm comfortable with. So yeah, I think it would be a useful list.
Good. So that should be the approach, and this was exactly my objective for you to give you an understanding of why we are discussing this in the first place. You know. All right. So it all makes sense. Now, if we go forward, now let's look at popular research areas in business. I think we've done this part on the left hand side, but anyway, there is some of these areas that we can call niche research areas. Like investigative research is another. It's totally different, from the perspective of how you approach this type of research, and some of the tools and some of the methods that you have to use. So investigative research is a little bit more on the expertise side, and I would say that you can call it more of a niche research. Legal research is another niche research, technology research, and so on and so forth. But everything on the left hand side is the most popular research areas. So what this slide is telling you is that if you focus in any of these areas, or you feel that you can package your services or build your services packages around these niche, they would really lend you some sort of work. This is coming out of again, like I said, it's based on our own internal market research we do here at AOFIRS. So that's why we have mentioned it. And I believe, I'm not sure if it's in the book, but this is the slide that I constructed, even the previous one. And I'm guessing that it should be in the book. If not, then this is where you should focus on if there is a niche area that you want to select for yourself. On the right hand side, right here, It is a popular research area in KPO, which is knowledge process outsourcing. That's what we like to call it. Knowledge process outsourcing really, literally, what it means is that someone who is looking to find an outside help or a consultant that could do some sort of research in specialized area, and they should have certain level of knowledge, not at expertise level, but at least satisfactory enough that it could be called knowledge process, which means someone has a marketing and sales knowledge to collect sales lead, so you outsource it. And there are data cent not data there are call centers that are called KPOs, knowledge processing outsourcing call centers. Or you could say that KPO is the type of work that is offered through Upwork mostly, or similar sites to Upwork. What other sites are there similar to Upwork? Do you know, uh, Glenn? Are there other sites as well other than
Yeah, I've got a list somewhere. There's a couple of hundred now, I think, but there's things like Fiverr and freelance and things like that. So
freelancer? I see. Okay, so they should all be KPOs, right? And one of the popular, so we did analysis, I believe, and did some research work for another client. And I think the research was on sites similar to Upwork, but it wasn't Upwork. Anyway, what we collected from there is um, these type of research that could be, I could say, a low hanging fruit for someone to get the work like right away, right? So sales lead collection, data scraping, recruitment data search, market research data, survey, polls, focus group, social media research. So these are the areas, which is what we call more popular areas. But the price points are very low. The other day I was looking at a research report for sales lead collection. Sales lead collection is now done through an automated process by using softwares. Those softwares use bots similar to the ones that we call spiders or robots, as in search engine. What they do is that you can just give them some parameters or some wordings to go and look for or crawl through the internet and find websites that has these wordings alongside the information like the phone number. So if it's telephone or area code you want to give, or the job description or the title of someone, it just starts to collect that information for you automatically. And in a day or two it ends up collecting, hundreds not hundreds, but at least tens of thousands of records from all over. So that is done automatically these days, but those leads are not hot leads, they are very cold and sometimes they're useless. So that kind of uh, thing is there. But more money, the if you give more qualified leads or better leads through what they call funnel marketing these days, which sort of makes it lukewarm leads, and then they become warm leads, and after that they become hot leads, and so they have these naming for it. So all these processes, one is able to filter out or bring more qualified leads to your client. And the more qualified the leads are, the more money that you can get for them. So there is a business element to it as well, depending on the type of leads you've collected. Data scraping, just collecting data from any raw data or structured data, doesn't matter. It's just that it's going to start to collect info. If I have to collect or do scraping, data scraping, I probably would end up using the software, because that's what it means really, is to go and scrape it from the internet. Recruitment data search pays a lot more money. I've seen people making as much as like $80, $90. And then there is another contract that sort of is more. It has things like, if you hire someone through your lead, or someone is hired, or if someone's resume is collected, then so much gets paid. And if someone actually lands into a job, then you get paid for it, and so on. So there, every industry has a chain of how they make the payments or give value to that piece of information, or pay you eventually as someone who is responsible for collecting that information. So the prices vary. Okay. Then market research data and so on. So anyway, so these are KPOs. What is this one? Market research is a very hot area, but it's highly competitive. Like these are generally taken over if it's a big client, or if it's a large corporate. They usually give this type of work to research companies who specialize only in doing market research. And then there are different levels of market researchers that get paid accordingly. So if you ask me, and we do a lot of market research, but we have consistent clients, and mostly it's referral business. So when it comes to market research, this is our favorite area. We have the software subscription. We have, up to date information. We are up to date with certain industry in market research, like certain markets we specialize in just because we have already done research in that area, and so on. So it is, it just depends. But the important part is that any type of offering that you do out there these days for research work, market research generally is part of it. So you don't ignore that. Try to see, if you haven't learned about it, or if you don't know much about it, then it's best to, you know, to learn a little bit more and to understand it better, so that you can offer these services. Just because in market research there are so many different type of data that you can collect online these days, because this is all digitized information. That's why. So the survey is another part, which is where you are required to create questionnaires. Just creating questionnaire is requires an expertise of its own, and it falls in the area of traditional research. In traditional research, they teach you how to create certain type of questionnaires for certain situations, and what are the ethics involved in asking or posing questions. What are some of the limitations of privacy in Canada versus US? You have to know a little bit of the law too. So for someone to create surveys, one has to have that understanding, or at least enough knowledge to put those questionnaires together. Industry reports, financial equity, and so on. So these are some of the generic or general idea of what type of reports or what type of opportunities are there, especially in project at the time of product launches, surveys, industry reports. Industry sub reports are generally very expensive if you have to buy them from outside source like IDC, for example. There is Forrester Research, and there are so many companies. But if you have to go and look for industry reports, generally that's what they are good at building. It's not specific to one business alone. It is for the entire industry. So it is usually elaborate reports, and they go run into thousands of dollars to procure. So that is something that small companies cannot afford. Yet they need industry research and so on. So you can actually pitch your proposal there. Factors to consider for research project: price determination, type of clients, and businesses. Okay, so when you are doing your research product project, the major issue is how you're going to price it. Like, we price certain type of research based on the history, the difficulty of collecting the data, the type of validation for that data, that information, the labor involved, the extent of or the volume of information that is involved, and so on. So there are so many factors, and not every research is typical or is the same. Every research that we have done or we have experience with is very peculiar and very specific. You could say that it is all custom. I never saw the two researches to be exactly the same. So that is the reason why pricing a project sometimes is more difficult part. But as long as you have a sense of knowing from your history of what you have experienced before, and you have the ability to project some of the risk or some of the unknowns that could involve exceeding the cost, or eventualities that would add to the cost, you have to also make sure that you incorporate that element or that part of the cost in your price. And at the same time, with what is being asked, or the scope of the project would tell you what could be some of the things that you have to consider, like those that are listed right now. As you can see that these are so many of them, and there could be even more. But generally, for someone who does not have the previous experience, or someone who is just starting their first project, the basic is that type of client that you have to understand. And there is a lot of explanation given in the book when we talk about type of client. So type would mean the nature of the business, would also mean the budgets, if it's a startup, or if it's an ongoing operation, or if the size of the company. The size of the project, size is relative. So what does size mean? A small company may have a project that is a long term, or involves a lot of research work, or if they are introducing a product, and it's looks like a small product, but they have a huge marketing budget. So the size of the project would all of a sudden will become really big. So one has to assess that. The complexity of the project is got a formula of its own. The complexity could mean number of things. It is generally time, cost, and scope. Complexity could also mean the nature of information that you require. The complexity also means if it is the first time you are bringing, someone is bringing the product or service, or it's a new concept, then what could be the complexities involved in there. Complexities in terms of human resource that is required. So everything put together would make it complex. And again, complexity is a term that can be used in several different ways to be assessed exactly. Volume of data to be gathered and processed. Sometimes it could be easy to collect the data, but just because the volume is such that it has a lot of numbers in it, or if the data is unstructured and you need to organize it, that would take a lot of time. So the volume of data would have an impact if it is too many numbers or hundreds and thousands of records to work with, and the volume comes into play. The type of engagement, whether or not you are foreseeing any subcontracting, or you see that you would be the only one engaged in or interfacing with the client, because subcontracting can work in several different ways, and there are several different types of subcontracting, especially when there is expertise required or consultant requires, not at the early stage of taking the contract, but somewhere in the middle, or somewhere towards the end, or it could be on demand. It just depends. So you also hire subcontractors. Self-assessment of hourly rates is most important if it is your own personal business, and this self-assessment would help you to buffer yourself, or to avoid some sort of work that you undertake and you end up losing money at the end. So minimum amount of money that you have to charge on hourly basis, let's suppose, is something that you have to figure out based on certain factors which are internal and certain that are external. Externals easily are your competitor prices, but the internal factor is where your overheads that are let's say fixed overheads are such that you have expensive location or the rental that you're paying, something that you use more often like phone bills and so on that you use extensively for making overseas calls. So those things you have to avoid, but at least you have to be realistic in assessing what could be your fixed cost and what could be your variable cost, based on how you are set up and what type of resources, like are you putting a lot of investment into it, or you starting off with hiring people first before getting any contracts. Depending on all those factors, you have to come up with an amount that talks about the price which would incorporate all these overheads, your fixed and variables, and certain amount of profits that you want to keep aside as a buffer so that it is built into your rates and you don't end up losing money. So even if it's a contract that takes 10 hours of your time, you should not lose money. Or if it is 50 hours of your time, you should be able to make some amount of money, or at least enough money that would pay your bills. So you have to assess like what is the minimum number of hours that you have to apply for you to um, be still profitable, and for the long run, if it is more number of hours, you end up making enough profits, and so on. So if you have calculated your hourly rate incorrectly out of pressure from your competitor, who you don't know, who knows, maybe that person is actually subcontracting that work to someone in India, okay, and charging far less price. You don't want to be following that or getting intimidated because and start to compete and lose the money on hourly basis. So you have to be more realistic, and remember that charging very high price, of course you would get to know and the client would let you know right away if your price is way too much. But at the same time, you don't want to be too low on quoting your prices, because that would underrate you. You won't be able to. So your own value should be assessed, your own expertise, your own professional background, everything plays a part in creating hourly rates. Check for acceptable pricing methods. Pricing method means that how you're going to bill the client. So there are different methods of billing. Like there is a cost plus method, which means that you are telling the client that whatever the cost is going to be, and based on the hourly rates, I'm going to charge 10% over or 20% over. Or it could be a fixed price contract, or it could be any type of contract, but depending on the type of acceptability, or the if you are staying within the market in quoting those prices based on the methods of those of pricing your project. So methods, as I mentioned to you, is all different: fixed price, variable price, cost plus contract, and so on. So there could be different ones, but in research work generally, there unless you have a very you've been working for the client for a long time and they know your rates and all that, they would be happy to do cost plus. But if you are starting fresh, you usually bill based on the project. Like it doesn't matter if the project exceeds certain time limit. In fact, you also end up paying penalty for that if it is a fixed um, project pricing. And um, and therefore, so you client doesn't have to worry about the hourly rates or hourly billing. It's all complete one blanket cost for the project. The competition, okay, so acceptable billing methods and so on, relationship with the client, client budget, size of the client business. All these are considerations for the project price determination. So, what is size of the research project? This is a very simplified formula. I guess what it's saying is the size of the project can be determined by multiplying the resource cost per hour into duration of the project in hours of work. So the resource cost per hour is not just your cost or your personal hourly rate. It would be other factors or resource costs that could mean anything in terms of what is desired or what is required to deliver the project. So that cost will have to be determined, and all of these calculations, like resource cost has a certain way of doing calculations, or there's a computation method to it. So we are not discussing that, but for now the formula says that hourly rate, let's suppose you are doing your project all by yourself, then whatever your price per hour is that you have assessed, as I discussed before, that multiplied by duration of the project, easy, that would give you the size of the project. So they'll get a, in terms of money, you would know what is the cost going to be. So size is equal to the dollar amount, which is cost per hour times duration of the project. The complexity of research project, length of the project, cost, volume of data, data source, we have discussed this already. So I guess while we were doing previous slide, we discussed volume of data, data source, quality of data, data collection methods. One thing I forgot to mention, this slide would help in this way. While we were doing complexity of the project, I did not mention, we talked about the volume of data, but data source, like some of the data that we collect is of primary nature, which means that it is collected firsthand as information that cannot be denied or it cannot be questioned, and it is considered to be most authentic. So that is primary source of information, or the type of data that is usually costly and involves extra bit of time and effort, whereas the secondary data is something that is collected from your own research, like information from articles, information from books, some opinions from outside that you've gathered, some other database you have used to collect that information, where that information is not first hand information, but basically somewhat an organized information that you have access to, as in subscription databases, and so that is secondary information. So depending on the nature of data source, you will have to assess the cost and the effort involved. The quality of data, some data needs to be verified. That means you have to go that extra length. Even if it is a secondary data, you may be required to verify and validate, like you have to look at citations, you have to look at bibliography, you have to look at some of the source where it is coming from, if it is coming from research paper, is it government information, and so on. So the quality of data, the data collection method involved. So if you have done certain things, which is we are mostly talking about the virtual or the internet related data collection methods. So let's suppose the method says that you're doing a survey or doing phone calls. Phone calls is more tedious. Out of every 50 phone calls, you would get a response of 3% or 2%. So, then, effort versus what gets delivered is a question mark, and there is a cost to it. Surveys, where you have to offer certain things or give some rewards, give some bonuses, or attract someone to answer your surveys, depending on the nature of survey, of course. If it is for the public or for general population, then that survey requires attention, and for anyone to give you time, you have to offer something. So again, the nature of the method involved means that there would be costs and there will be time involvement. Discussions, focus groups, etc. The level of expertise and collaboration, third parties involvement. Not every research is complete unless you have expertise in certain other areas which could be part of the research work, and that expertise you may not have. So you will have to hire some experts, you have to give their names, you have to give their background so that the client has the assurance that it is coming from the consultant who is qualified to be called an expert in that specific area. So all that has to be revealed. That would be a part of the complexity. Complexity in terms of time, money, and effort. Okay, so complexity is really something that involves everything. So all these elements together has to be recognized, acknowledged, and based on your experience and based on your foresight in doing research work or similar type of research work plays a large part in designing the project or designing the proposal for your client. Value to your investors. Okay, so now this slide is saying, is telling you how you would have to, and it is taking me, literally is taking me back to the second slide we did, based on what the client expectation is. Um, but anyway, here it's saying establish value to your investment as a professional researcher first. So value, or the type of presentation that you would do, either on the website or to the client or in your brochures, wherever, you have to make sure that all of these that is mentioned here in bullet points is covered, so that when you are talking about the value in terms of money, you can back it up with what is being shown here, as if it is deserving the price that you are asking for your hourly rates, or the price that you would charge to the client. So your background, your specialization, these are not something which you won't have a knowledge of, but all this is part of um, building a value in terms of money for what you are capable of, what you deserve to be charging to the client. Okay. Um, so we've got, like in any other business, you have to develop your marketing strategy for sure. And these are the questions, I guess. So in a way, it is saying that it is giving you an idea of how you're going to build your marketing plan. And many of you must, I guess, every one of us, when we have to start a business, we know what the market is like before we get into it. And for that reason, we build a marketing plan to understand if we are heading in the right direction. So this is where the questions are when you are trying to build your marketing strategy. Branding strategy, for instance, pricing, branding, like I mentioned, it's always a good idea to create a simple logo, even if it is your name or wordings, but it should have some colors or some sort of design to it, so that it stands out and gives an impression that it is one branding that you would be using in your letterheads, just to make it look more professional and to give it a sense of permanence, like you are in the business for some time, or you are going to be around for a long time. What is your pricing strategy? Like over here, it is saying, what is your marketing communication plan? So all these questions are part of the business plan, but we are not going to learn how to create a business plan. That's not part of our course, but rather just developing your marketing strategy after you have created a valuation of what you're supposed to be charging, and how you want to present yourself. The second approach is to create your marketing strategy. That's why this slide is coming, or preceding the previous one, following the previous one. There it is. So you see this one, Glenn. Remember, I was asking you about outsourcing opportunities or the outsourcing platform. So these are the ones. Do you know of these other than Upwork, People Per Hour, Odesk, Outsourcely, Freelancer, Guru, and all these? Fancy Hands, TaskRabbit, Rich. I don't know. There's so many of them. So
Some of
this.
those are really low end ones. I think the Elancer is actually a precursor to Upworks. I believe that it may not exist anymore if Upworks kind of merged with them. But some of the other ones I've heard of for sure.
Okay, so we've done the outsourcing platform, and this is a slide for those who don't know the platform. I guess this is more like a generic view of how the outsourcing platform like Upworks works. So that's somewhat like Upwork or People Per Hour. So I don't think we have to worry about this. Mikita, did you want me to explain the outsourcing platforms or portals that we were talking about?
No, that's fine. I see it.
Okay. So there are these freelancing as research contractors, Craigslist, NG's list. Groups are most important, I guess. Some of the groups are really strong where you can place your expertise in to look for opportunities. LinkedIn, Facebook, the work at home, women.com. Makita, did you know of this one? Work at
I
home.
have never heard of that.
All right, you may want to check this out. Okay.
Yeah.
So there are, so this is just giving, these slides are giving ideas of quick opportunities or some of the opportunities for doing freelancing or doing some contractual work, that is virtual platforms. Ask questions, ask wonder hires everyone that gets qualified as CIRS. So we know these people very well. What Ask Wonder does, for example, or these platforms like Mobile Expression, Inbox Dollars. I haven't been to inboxdollars.com, but Mobile Expressions and Ask Wonder, for example, you can ask quick questions and they will provide the answer for you. Or if you have a short research which would take maybe an hour or two, they would be able to do it for you, and for that reason they hire outside help. And therefore there are these opportunities where on demand you can deliver your work as a consultant or a researcher to them for answering like I said, like quick searches. And they pay, I think, anywhere between 15 to $25 an hour. um, Other, which is very low, but it is on demand thing. Not too much of your time is taken, so 2-3 hours you make about $50. That's what it is good for. Other work opportunities are, I don't know if you have tried opinion sites. Like we have a lot of like we get offers um, to give opinions on certain websites, just on products or on some issues, even political issues. But we stay away from these sites. We no longer do that anymore because they ask you to even give opinions, favorable opinions, or to favor someone. So it is sometimes biased, and you don't want to. So, but then of course there are other sites. Many of the sites are not like this. Some of the sites like opinionoutpost.com is a good start. They pay you for your opinions that you can put in there. Website testing, user interface testing, you can do. You can write reviews. So these are the opportunities that come with other online works. And then there are certain websites, they ask you to create ghost accounts, or depending on how many ghost accounts you have, they pay you for it. That is also a marketing site, and we don't want to get involved in that type of research work. So you have to be very cautious. Like if you have, let's say, about 50 to 100 ghost accounts, they pay you X amount of money. And depending on ghost accounts, you know what that means. Ghost account means literally you creating a fictitious person, and you are creating accounts of individuals that don't exist. So that is what we call ghost accounts. We don't want to get into that. How to geek is very good. They pay you a lot of money. It is do it yourself thing. You can create things. You can make videos, and they pay you a lot of money. So that's those opportunities. Virtual platform, typical outsourced research. Now this is the total list that is coming out from the platforms like Upwork, for example, or for a generalist. These are the areas: lead generation, data mining, data verification. You can use these wordings to find opportunities as well. So, website content scraping, contact list collection, product pricing, product selection. Product pricing and product selection is very hot these days because a lot of drop shipment is being done. People are not actually create building their own product inventories. So they're basically using third party manufacturers or vendors to do the shipment. So product pricing and product selection important. Resume search and HR procurement. If you work with HR companies, they hire you as virtual assistant, and these days a lot of people are hiring virtual assistant to do this kind of work. There is I'm sure you've heard of a company called ADP. You know of ADP, eh? ADP is a payroll company and HR company. They have a course. In fact, they wanted to sue us recently because we were teaching people how to do recruitment online. So they said that they have a credential or a certification which is called, I believe it is called Certified Internet Recruiter. Let me check. Where is it? CADP CIR. What is it? It's ADP. So this is a certification they have created, and it's an expensive course to do to find resumes or find you know people that they can hire. Where is it? Diversified CIR. This is what it is. It's 995. See how much they're charging, and they're teaching you how to do online search. And see their abbreviation AIRS, which is similar to our name AOFIRS. Ours is AOFIRS, theirs is AIRS. I don't know why they call it AIRS, but their credentials is called CIR. This is exclusively teaching you how to find resumes online, how to effectively use Boolean operators, modifiers to successfully identify keywords. You see all this, and this is a certification they call CIR. So this the reason I'm explaining this is because this area of resume search and HR procurement is another field, and your expertise is generally in finding all sorts of information, including resumes. So you can look into this one: virtual assistant, content writer, content specific research, business intelligence. So all this is what we called outsourced opportunities that you can tap into. Then we've got job white. So these are some of the, I don't know what to tell you about them because I haven't been to these sites, but I guess online research jobs, this is really proper job sites that are specifically hiring virtual help or people who can do telecommuting, but it could be a regular job or it could be contract. But these are some of the websites that are specific, like I said, just hiring people that want to do remote work. So JobWhite is one, bambooher.com is a, let me check one of them. I'm not sure if it is a new information or if it is still around or not. So just to see if it exists, bamboohr.com. Well, it is an HR, but I think everybody's sort of making their own software these days. So they may have evolved or they may have developed a software that they are selling these days. So please check and see if any of these are still doing exactly what they're supposed to, or the reason why we have placed it there in the slide. I'm not sure of it. So you may want to check it. This has been acquired by Ceridian. So here goes another one. Yeah, please check them out. Um, Flex Job, if you are interested in. Have you heard of Flex Jobs, Glenn?
No, I haven't. At least that doesn't ring a bell anyway.
Anyway, you may want to look them up and see whichever one are still around. Okay. Um, okay. In this chart, we have actually summarized what we have been learning so far. So, as an independent researcher, we can divide your offerings in two area generally. One is a generalist and the other one is subject expertise. The contracts or the nature of contracts you can expect are mentioned in three boxes under contracts for research. Information, there is one box that says information aggregators, answering questions and research paper collection. So if you go to sites like where is it, researchgate.com, they would hire you if you've done your CIRS. First of all, nobody is going to question your expertise, they'll hire you right away. But I cannot guarantee like how much money they're going to pay on hourly basis, or whether or not it's going to be a contract or they hire you as a permanent. Not sure, but one thing is that if you have done your CIRS, you will surely be hired by them, any one of them. Info, because we are the they know us already. Information aggregators are the kind of people which are similar to uh, what is that site called, Quora, where there is Q&A. So information aggregator are sites like that, and they are hiring. They don't show it in the front, but if they have a separate portal that is hiring people. Similarly, Google has a portal that is hiring people, but that's separate. That has a link which is difficult to find sometimes. But if you know how to do your queries, you can still get to it. And similar sites, eh? But they're big sites and they hire and they pay you good money. Answering Q&As and research paper collection. ResearchGate pays you a lot of money if you're collecting research papers. ResearchGate is not doing their own research to create those research papers, but rather their research is based on collection of all those research papers that are out there, like on the internet, or those are being indexed by the search engine. So that's what they do research on. And then there are others, they do specific type of collection of information, like IT boss research, it collects information on technology. um, Clarify, I don't know others, you may want to check on this. Then the next box says that outsource platform offshore inexpensive bids oriented projects, again Upwork, Elancer, and so on. Then social networks advertised quick hiring, temp, contract, and employment. Social networks, as I mentioned, be careful about opinions, be careful about ghost accounts, be careful about marketeers, and make sure that you're, you get paid, and paid in advance when you work with some of these social network companies, because a lot of them are offshore or they have links offshore, and some of them are shady. But others that are popular, that are giving out ads or hiring, is shown Craigslist, Angie's List, Twitter, Moms at Home, and so on. Anyway, both these platforms can be giving works or outsourcing work that is listed here, that is spelled out, with the naming and everything, resume search, and so on. So this is just a concise way of describing what we discussed before. Subject expertise, you can label yourself as an expert on online market research, new product research, clinical research, legal, patents and copyrights, company trends, and so all these are the type of research that you can do, mostly industry research or market research. These are listed here. So this is where we are going to conclude our today's lecture, for the type of opportunities that you can expect from starting your own business. This is a very small part of our CIRS. It is perhaps a very short module, and it is got, I think, I'm not sure, but I think it is like 10 questions in the exam, so no more than 20, 10 questions. Uh, and the other thing that I would want to continue, I would like to discuss as well with you, we don't have to worry about this one, is the type of documentation that is involved in getting the contracts, delivering the contracts, negotiating the contracts. So all that communication stuff that I mentioned to you, like some of the reports that uh, you should have a knowledge about, like how to build those reports. Um, that information is here somewhere, and I want to talk about that. See, remember, we were talking about size of the project. We were talking about the, now this is the book I've opened here, the module 3, as you can see, research in business and business, how to do the project pricing, the formula that we talked about, size of the research. More description and more detail is given already, that you can read through the book. Complexity, volume of data, what it means, we've discussed it already. um, Hiring of project pricing, there's fixed pricing, time and material or cost plus, as I told you. Retainer, which is pretty much, you know retainer is another type of pricing, but you can read through it. It is just like advance payment or mobilization advance to start a project, amount that you are given, from which you're going to spend the money, and then when it falls below certain price level, you're going to go back to the client and ask them that, give them the bill and tell them that so much work has been done already, so give you more money. So that is retainer based. How to do contract negotiations, establish value to your investment. This slide we were doing. Marketing strategy we have done. Let me see what is it that I wanted to mention before we conclude today. The worth per hour, remember the pricing that you would do to calculate the minimum hourly rate that you would charge for your services. So this is what is telling you how you're going to calculate that. The calculation is self-explanatory, and it's exhibited in this example, as you could see. I don't have to. I mean, this part you can see at your end and understand it. It's not very complex. It's basic addition and subtraction, and everything that is put in the cost is shown here, and how the minimum pricing is calculated is given in this area. Then project estimation and budgets, example of how we're going to calculate the budgets or the price is shown. What is important is not the numbers here, but rather the different types of costs or the cost points that you want to consider, and you don't want to um, forget to mention them or to incorporate them in pricing. For instance, if the project estimate that you have to create, and we're not talking about the complexity factor, we're just talking about plain processes or plainly how or what type of efforts would require how many hours, and therefore applying the minimum rate to it. What could be the cost versus price are two different things. Cost is what it's going to cost you, and price is what you're going to charge the client. So let's suppose the cost is what we are talking about. So $105 an hour is your cost. So initial meeting 2 hours, estimate building 1 hour 30. It's all self, like online research 21 hours, research interviews, so many hours multiplied by rate, simple mathematics. All these on the left hand side that are listed are different stages or different types of cost points that you may want to consider, and there could be many more. Is just what is considered standard generally. So if you add all of the multiplied or the values attached to individual process based on time, if you add them together, the cost or the what would be your cost of the project would be calculated. So $8,820. And if you want to add the factor of pricing or whatever you want to bill the client, you can add on top of it. um, Legal structure, sole proprietorship, partnership, limited partnership, it's going to go away in the, see, this corporate structuring part will go away in the 5.0 version. So I haven't taught you this, and I don't think that and therefore we don't have a slides for this. Anything that is not in the slide, you don't have to worry about. And then the booklets that I give you is what is going to be part of 5.0. And this part in the book, which is talking about corporate structures, we don't have to worry about. I'm going to skip all of this totally. What is considered fixed cost and what is considered variable cost in research business is clearly defined based on the cost headings. Fixed cost could be this on the left, variable cost is this on the right. So these are just helpful charts. The documentation is what we will talk about tomorrow. So our tomorrow's lecture will cover request for research proposal. What is it? There is a specimen we will discuss, and what are the different types of headings or topics that are covered in request for proposal, and how you're going to deliver the proposal. There is a sample or a specimen mentioned. We're going to discuss that. Research services contract, how you're going to build your contract, what are the essential elements of a contract for research, and then there is a sample of, I guess, a report also, which is a research report or a market research report, how that is built and what is covered in that. How are you going to invoice, like how do you build an invoice for research? There is a way in which you're going to design your billing, and this is a sample of it. It's not coming as clear as I'd like it to be, but at least I think it is visible enough. but this is one sample of invoice, something that we generate from AOFIRS to our for our clients, and it is showing you how we see all of these elements. They look like standard, but they're very specific actually. And they're pretty much consistent all across the industry. When you start to view them, and when we learn about these specimens, you will see that it makes a difference between being called a professional researcher and a novice or a starter who doesn't know the industry well enough. So that would be the difference, or at least from the eyes of the client. They would look at how you are documenting things and how you are exchanging some of the important pieces of paper, uh, specifically what is involved in exchanging documents to start, and from the start to finishing the research contract is significant, um, enough that it would make a difference in making an impression on your client. So with this, I think we are going to finish our today's lecture, and tomorrow, as I said, we'll continue with this. And so far, if you have any questions or something that I can answer, you can ask now. These are the specimens we'll be discussing. You can even open your book and go through it if you'd like. It starts from, I guess, it's module 3. So it's going to start from page 453 onwards. So far so good. All is covered. So Makita, you didn't get bored so far? It was still okay, you think? Was it useful for
No,
you?
it was really good. It was useful. Yes.
All right. And Glenn, should we call it a day? I think enough information for today.
Yeah, I think we covered a lot of ground today.
Excellent. And then let you guys go and enjoy your evening. I'll see you tomorrow. All right. Same time. Same time meaning 6 o'clock, not 6:15. I was sorry I was late today. Okay.
No problem.
All right.
All
Thanks.
right.
Thanks.
Take
Have a good
care. Bye
evening.
bye.
Have a good
You
evening.
too. Have
Bye
a
bye.
good evening. Bye bye.